Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stickity Stacks in this thing, baby. Representing TKOG. And today I'm going to be updating Shaddolls for you guys. I actually changed my variant a bit. Just kind of like switched up some cards. And definitely I'm just liking how Shaddol interacts with some of the best decks right now, with pretty much all of them. I like how this deck has such an incredibly, just one-sided Eldritch matchup. It's incredibly good against Zodiacs. Even Zeus. This deck is incredibly good against Drytron and Virtual World with the right setup. Virtual World more specifically because VFD only affects one attribute when it comes to the graveyard interactions, and since this deck has so many different cards with different attributes that can activate their effects in graveyard, you can still play under VFD. It's just your cards that touch the field can't activate, but when they hit the grave, they can. So you can still make cards like Construct. It just depends what attribute they call, to be honest, but like if they call Light, you can't use Construct's graveyard effect to add from grave to hand, but you can summon Al Capone and link him off and add something from grave or deck to hand. And at the same time, you can still activate all your Shaddol monsters from grave, like Dragon, Squamata, and Hedgehog, and Windy, etc. if your opponent called Light. So there's a lot that you can do under VFD. One of the things you cannot do is OTK, but you can still set up your board to dismantle the Chuchi by popping it with Dragon and getting access to Schism. So under VFD, believe it or not, this deck can actually deal with the Chuchi, banish the Shinshin follow-up, and get access to Schism all at the same time. And by activating Schism, you'll literally send the VFD to the graveyard and summon a Winda. And it's just like, dude, like you can literally just take control of the game. Against Drytrons, you need either the right hand trap setup or you need to have access to Aerial to just DD Crow their cards ASAP no Rocky. Which is why I'm still main decking the Sinister Shadow games in my list, even though I took out a lot of the other traps and went back to my roots. This deck is just amazing, you guys. It's a very, very skillful deck. It's very rewarding. It has a lot of really, really cool interactions, and you can pull a lot off with so little with this deck. It can achieve a lot, and it just hasn't reached the peak of its greatness yet, even though the deck's 7 years old, you know? Let's go ahead and get into my list. So I got stuff organized here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the bread and butter. The best part of the deck, honestly, is the Shaddol monsters. They make everything happen for you. So we have 3 Mathman, and also we have 3 Sinister Shadow games. And then we have a 4th Mathman in the form of Foolish Burial Goods. So these are Mathmans you can use right away, and Shadows games is just another way to dump your cards. But because it's in the trap form, it's a starter, an extender, or even a follow-up if you need it to be. It just helps you push, and it's not once per turn, which makes it really, really busted. This is why, like, you could have a simple hand, but against Drytron, just dump an Aerial, and you can still just clear their ritual spell, banish a couple Drytron names. When they resolve Union Carrier, just banish the L-Tenon and whatever else you need. It's just, this card is really, really good right now. It's so OP. Even dumping Dragon just to pop back rows, getting advantage by dumping Windy. This card's amazing, and it fuels your Schism, so it's like just another Mathman basically, but it's in trap form. So these are like starters for me, like these 7. And then the actual dolls, I'm playing 4 copies of Windy. So you have 4 Mathman, 4 Windy. Very, very consistent access to these cards. And then next up, I am playing 3 copies of Squamata, which is personally, in my opinion, the best Shaddol monster. And Squamata and Shadow games pretty much do the same thing, send a Shaddol card from deck to grave. So it's like you're playing 6 Squamatas. You're playing so many ways to dump your cards, it's just ridiculous. And then I'm also playing 3 copies of Hedgehog. A high dog count has always been my personal thing, while some people are over here playing like literally 8 Shaddol cards and calling it a Shaddol deck. But like a high Shaddol count for me, I love it, especially because how much I love to fusion summon in this deck. I enjoy it, and I've always been on 3 Aerials. This card's just always been good to me. People are just now catching on, thinking like, oh wow, I should play more than 1 Aerial, and I should use this DD Crow effect, not just flip it with the Red Shaddol Incarnation just for a combo off summoning Construct. You know, like people are actually using him as a utility card and as a defensive card, and it's a part of the arsenal. This deck has one of the biggest toolboxes that any deck could ever possibly have. So many different effects. Mathman has Lord knows how many tricks up his sleeve because all these cards that he can dump get different interactions, and it's just really, really good. Next up, I'm on 2 copies of Dragon, 1 Shaddol Hound, 1 Shaddol Beast, one Shaddoll Falco, one Kaios, and Golden Lord is just a Shaddoll fusion target that gives me huge critical mass, a better grind game, and consistent follow-ups, and the ability to deal with threatening cards on the field. Whatever I send for cost off him can be added back off my fusion monsters. So Lord has a great home in a deck like this. He's just a very skillful card. He's really, really good. Kaios is literally just a searchable light for the situations he calls for. Dragon is very OP right now. Falco, I've considered playing multiples because this card just comes up a lot. It's a huge piece of your grind game, and this deck needs to be able to grind when necessary. But the beauty of it is it can. And then Beast, since I'm not playing a fusion combo build, like a hefty amount of fusion outlets, Beast is not so great because you don't ever want to draw cards like this without a fusion outlet. And because I'm only playing basically 12 fusion outlets, so to speak, E-Telly kind of counts. It's like you don't want to have clogged hands, so that's why I just cut Beast down to 1. Like I said, in pretty much all my Shaddoll videos, Hound is very, very good. This card is just so skillful. It makes Squamata just a huge piece of interaction whenever you're using El Shaddoll Fusion on your opponent's turn. Like I've called the play so many times, or your opponent's getting ready to summon a Gearfried. I used to do it so much when Infernal is like the best deck. I would just chain El Shaddoll Fusion to Gearfried's activation to summon itself, fuse with Squamata, and Gearfried hits the field. I dump Hound, use Hound, change Gearfried to defense. It's just, Squamata is just amazing, but Hound makes Squamata even more of a utility card. Changing battle positions is actually really good. It might not seem like it in 2021, but it's still good. That includes against Dinos. One of my favorite plays that I like to do, I talk about it a lot, is El Shaddoll Fusion in battle phase. Summon Al Capone. The reason why I like doing that instead of just flipping Winda and locking them out is sometimes I want my opponent to play into Shaddoll Fusion, so I have to let them commit. So I let them go into Doka UCT, activate L, or if I see like they're kind of smart, you can just flip Schism to bait like a Logia, and then activate El Shaddoll Fusion anyways, because, some people would be like, I'm going to summon Logia because I feel like you're holding your Schism, and you have the L. So the El Shaddoll Fusion play I'm talking about is using Squamata and like Ariel or Windy to summon Al Capone. Go Al Capone Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 Squamata, Chainlink 3 Windy or Ariel. Ariel preferably to banish their follow-up. And what happens is you permanently negate Doka. Now that's an extra deck monster on the field that's going to be there, which is perfect for you. It's permanently negated, and you use Squamata to dump Hound, use Hound to change UCT to defense in the battle phase. So Miscellaneous Source doesn't protect you and Doka's negated. So now they have a UCT that doesn't do anything because you fuse with your face downs and you don't get OTK'd. They have a Doka that's permanently negated, and now your Shaddoll Fusion is fully live. It's just amazing. So I like Hound, and flipping this card to add my construct from graveyard back to extra deck is very important because I need a Shaddoll construct in extra deck pretty much very often. Whenever I'm in those situations where I need to go for game, you have to use a construct a lot of the time to get the bodies onto field that you need to link climb into Borrowed Sword or Access Code. And it's just really, really important. So yes, this card's really good. I preach it a lot. It's very, very good. Shaddolls just have so much going for them. And then Dragon itself is also a great piece of interaction. Whether you need to pop Quinlong or Chuchi, anything that would threaten your Winda or your Schism, if you just need to pop Eldritch cards, if you just need to kill any back rows, Dragon is a very, 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 very good piece of interaction against like so many decks right now. It's just crazy. And also you can flip it to just bounce a card. Ariel, like I said, is an engine in itself. Ariel actually sets up for itself, as well as Schism, one of my favorite plays off Schism for advantage sakes, which this deck again is like Sky Strikers with how much advantage it can get, is Schism into Construct by banishing a Construct from grave to summon a fresh Construct. Construct, dump Windy, Windy summon Ariel, use the Ariel. You can even use Resh or dump Hound, flip Ariel, use this effect, special summon the banished Construct, and use that Construct's effect, and you just turn one Construct into another Construct and an Ariel, plus a dump, and then just get way too much advantage. And then on your turn, you can Schism again. It's just ridiculous. So Ariel is very, very, very OP. It just does so much for this deck. It's a great piece of new support that changed the game for Shaddolls, because Triple DD Crow is crazy right now, whether it's VW, Drytron, Eldritch. Even banishing Trident, believe it or not, against Zodiac does stuff. So yeah, Triple DD Crow is just really good against everything. And then we have Hedgehog. Hedgehog just literally searches your whole archetype. Sometimes setting Hedgehog is still good, even in 2021, believe it or not. And this card just punishes people by playing into the Shaddoll fusion. And Squamata and Windy, being the best ones, have the most versatility of all because they access every single other Shaddoll monster. And they also indirectly let you access your spells and traps, whether you're dumping them off Squamata or using Windy to summon the Hedgehog to flip it and search. These cards let you see your whole deck. These are the best ones. Squamata obviously is just way too OP. Squamata is the best Shaddoll, period. In the main deck. And having 4 Windies does make a huge difference. And these cards are also just literally a part of your toolbox. Utility cards with very versatile options, very little drawback, and these cards just reward you. They're very good, including the Shadow Games interactions on your opponent's turn, which is just amazing, you guys. So those are pretty much all the Shaddoll monsters. Shadow Games is like 3 extra of any Shaddoll monster, because you can dump Hedgehog or Windy to see more names. So it's very versatile as a card. And it's the only disruptive trap outside of Schism and like Incarnation. Pretty much all the traps I play are Shaddoll traps. So that's how I feel about traps right now in this deck. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide this with the other pile of cards. Next up for my spells, only spells I play outside of Foolish and E-Telly, which are pretty much extra names, or fusion spells. I don't know why people are cutting Shaddoll Fusion. I will not, nor will I cut L, because I love how versatile L is as a card. I just love these cards right here. 3 L, 3 Shaddoll Fusion, 3 Polys, and 3 Super Polys. So this build is a hand trap Shaddoll build versus trap dolls. The difference with hand traps and traps is huge for a Shaddoll deck, because when you're playing a trap build, you purposely throw so many traps in your deck that fusion summoning becomes very like few far between. You're pretty much fusion summoning off of Schism pretty much every time, because you play so many traps that when you draw fusion spells, sometimes you don't have enough monsters. But when you play hand traps, they act just like a trap card would as a disruptive piece, except their turn 0 plays, being that you can stop Drytrons before they end on Vanity's Ruler. But with trap cards, you can't do that. And also these hand traps can be combo pieces because they are fusion attributes for your fusion play. So that's why I'm personally siding with hand trap dolls right now versus trap dolls, because I like for my cards to have multi-purpose utility, just for that sake, that if I need it to be a disruption, it can, but also it's a combo piece. It's kind of similar to Dogmatic of Punishment and Shadow Games, because these cards can disrupt your opponent and benefit you, but they are trap cards, and there's nothing wrong with traps. It's just when you're playing against Drytron, what are these traps going to do? Unless it's a Solemn Strike, you're pretty much getting negated by Herald every time. So that's another big problem with trap dolls. That if you don't play enough hand traps, you will be looking at a Herald of Ultimateness and a Vanity's Ruler. And it's like, if you don't have a Solemn Strike, what are you supposed to do? Just hope that they don't have enough fairies? That's just not good, you know? And it also makes Super Poly dead. So these are the 12 fusion outlets of choice: 3 Shaddoll Fusion, 3 L, regular Poly, and Super Poly. This is amazing for breaking boards, including against VFD. If you draw Super Poly, if they called light, it's your lucky day. You can fuse off their board and make your construct, even if she doesn't get her effect. Clearing, when you're clearing the VFD, that's half of your work. So if they called light and you have Squamata, you can normal Squamata and literally dismantle VFD and Chuchi at the same time by summoning Construct and dumping the dragon to pop the Chuchi, which would force Chuchi to pop the Construct, which is just, again, Super Poly is an amazing card. I just really like it. And against Drytron, when it's just for Herald's sake, you can Super Poly their board and make Construct. This beats Herald. It doesn't beat Vanity's Ruler. This also is a great out to cards like Makaba and also Dragoon, because I do play Draco Stapilio. So Super Poly is amazing in this deck, and Shaddolls are the best deck to play Super Polys in. So this is like a good piece of interaction. It's a control card, it's a tempo card, it's an evasive card, it's an offensive card. It's just very multi-purpose. Super Poly is very flexible, and obviously your opponent literally cannot respond to this card. So it's pretty OP. I don't know why people wouldn't play 3 of that card. It's really good. And it also helps you going second. In addition to when you go first, it's just a way to take a card from your opponent. And this card is OP against Eldritch too, because when you hit their Golden Lord and then summon Construct and dump Aerial, you're hitting their lands because they can only activate an in phase, and you're banishing the Lord, and they're just so far behind now, and you're so far ahead. And then OG Poly just as an additional fusion outlet because I actually do like fusion summoning. Unlike a lot of Shaddoll players right now, they just want to set traps and pass. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what works for them, it's what works for them. But what has worked for me for like years is honestly just fusion summoning in Shaddolls. It's just amazing. Like, it's literally what the deck is supposed to do. It's a fusion-based deck. Like, I understand Schism's amazing, but I also know that unless you hard draw Schism, you need construct access to see Schism, which means you need a fusion summon in the first place. That's why you basically have to play Dogmatica Punishment to dump Op Cologne and add Schism that way. Otherwise, it's just really not easy to get Schism access. So it's like you have to wait so long to get a Schism, and it's like for me, I'd rather just see it right now and have the ability to OTK going second, throw my hand traps on my opponent, break their board, set up Winda or Shikinaga or whichever the situation calls for, and get my control utility cards and just take command of the duel. So like I need these cards right here. Outside of the polys though, Shaddoll Fusion is obviously super impactful. Nobody really plays around it anymore. And L is the most versatile one. You can activate this in draw phase, play around Droll, plays around Valor, it plays around Fleur de Lis. This card plays around Punishment. It can literally play around Schism itself. You can just change this to anything that threatens your board. Chain it. It's so good. Like, El Shaddoll Fusion is just amazing. And fusion summoning off El Shaddoll Fusion, the reason why this benefits you sometimes more than Schism is because you get more advantage and you get more resources off of this and you get more interaction. Schism can send a card and summon, but El Shaddoll Fusion can banish a card, pop a card, and negate a card all at the same time. And on top of that, you still get to recover it. So that's the difference. El Shaddoll Fusion gives you more ways to interact, more ways to disrupt. And also, fusion summoning with Squamata, believe it or not, can just literally just dismantle the biggest part of your opponent's deck. Whatever component is most important, whether it's the back row, whether it's the graveyard, just getting your utility cards. When you fusion with Ariel and Squamata into Al Capone using L, there's a huge difference from that versus Schism summon Al Capone. It's both are good, but sometimes L is better. This is why I don't really agree with people cutting this card. But in my opinion, I don't think they're like true Shaddoll players. I think they're more like they just saw that Trapdoll's doing good, so they just want to play Trapdolls too. But they were never really like playing it, even when Construct was banned, you know. So now getting past that, the traps already. I'm talking about Shadow Game. I've spoken that. 2 Resh. Resh is a 2-of. You banish one for the combo and you want to loop the other one. This makes your grind game almost infinite because looping Construct off Resh is just ridiculous. Looping Winda, looping Al Capone, Op Cologne being looped off this is ridiculously good. Just perm negate. Can't be destroyed by battle. It dies. I float. I get something else. Keep summoning this and just taking a card from your opponent over and over and over. This card is really, really broken. Resh is amazing. And I want double Schism. For my build, I think double Schism is just the standard now moving forward because DD Crow, Skullmeister, and Walkero are in the format. And I really want to say that DD Crow and Walkero specifically, just when this card gets banished, it hurts. I can still make plays, but Schism pays for itself more and more and more because it's a continuous trap. And in the long run, this will carry you more than L because L requires for you to consistently not only recover it off of cards like Construct and Core, etc., you know, Window, whatever it is, but you also need to keep generating those bodies and those fusion materials. Otherwise, you won't be able to use L. So I'm not denying Schism's impact or its quality. It's a great card. But when I was referencing El Shaddoll Fusion, I said it for a reason because L does give you more interactions. But in the long run, Schism is what's going to carry you because you're just going to keep fusion summoning off this card over and over and over and keep pressure on your opponent. So if this card gets crowed, it hurts. And DD Crow's in the format. You never want that to happen to you. So that's why I think 2 Schism is the standard. And now I did say it's hand trap dolls. So here are my hand traps. So I'm on 3 Nib. I main deck Nib. I think Nib is really good. And main decking it, people don't play around it. They don't respect this card because they think it's bad. It's also a hand trap that's a combo piece. And then I'm on 3 Gamma. I love Gamma in Shaddolls. I don't think any Shaddoll player should not play Gamma. Ash, I wanted to play El Shaddoll Grista so that this can be a combo piece, but pretty much every time I draw Ash, I'm going to use it anyways. Whereas some hand traps like Bell might not be used, but you can Ash every deck. But sometimes you don't need the Bell, and sometimes you don't need the Crow, so they become a combo piece. So I'm playing 15 hand traps. You could easily cut the 3 polys and play 18 hand traps. You could easily cut some of the Shaddolls monsters, lower the count if you want to, and you can play 21 hand traps, or you can throw in a bunch of torrentials and strikes and punishments and just play a trapdoll variant. The beauty of this deck is how flexible it is, and because I play 60, there's a lot of room for creativity and preferences that you might want to stick to. But these are the hand traps of choice. I think all of these are good this format. Gamma and Ash and Nib are the most impactful hand traps against everything. You can nib Drytrons, you can nib the Summon of Union Carrier, or when they resolve Gamma L10 in, hitting those Bintons and stuff, you can nib. The reason why that's good is because they lose their extra body to tribute summon for Vanity's Ruler, which means now it's like just Herald of Ultimateness, and you can super poly that. So Nib's good against that deck, Nib's good against VW, Nib's good against Zoo because they summon a lot to go into Zeus. Nib is just really good, whether it's Prank Kids, etc. There's so many decks you can nib. Obviously, this card's crazy. It's really, really good. And Ash is generically applicable. All these hand traps are amazing, but these are the main 9 that are the best ones. And then Bell and Crow are still really good. I love DD Crow right now. It's so OP, and it's really, really scary against this deck too. Like DD Crow against Shaddolls is very scary. It really is. So that's the main deck, you guys. That's all 60 cards. Now for the extra. The 4 copies of Construct. This card will never be power crept, ever, ever, ever. She's one of the best things that ever happened to Yu-Gi-Oh! Construct is bae, you guys. This card is OP. It's not once per turn. You can just keep sending, keep sending. This also plays around Droll, which is really cool. One of my previous builds had a lot of searching, so people would want to side Droll, and then you would just dump your cards and add them that way, playing around Droll. This card is just incredibly OP. The chain blocking is real. Every time you fusion summon, it's so impactful because you get so much, and your opponent can't hand trap certain things. They can't Meister and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. So I like fusion summoning and Shaddolls, and I think Construct is still the center focus. You want to use this card to dump cards like Schism, El Shaddol Fusion, and Resh. That's actually the trio for me. El, Resh, and Schism are the trio. I want all 3 of those, and when I see those, I'm pretty much good. And when you do the combo for Construct, when you make a Construct dumping a Windy or a Squamata as a material, you can actually get access to Resh and also Schism. And if you started that combo with L's already going to be in rotation. So it's really, really impactful. And instead of ending on Appaloosa or Dweller or anything, you just pretty much get Schism, Resh, L, and Link Construct and Cross Sheep. And that's how I play Shaddolls, no matter what age it is. It's just so good. And then we have Double Al Capone. This card is ridiculously broken. 2 is necessary. You will be summoning this a lot. And after it's gone, you will be either putting it back into your extra deck with Shaddoll Hound, or you will be using Resh to bring this card back and continuously negate cards forever and make your opponent work really hard to get over it just so that you can search anyways. That's the beauty of this card. Is it's pretty hard to get over because it does negate on summon and it cannot be destroyed by battle. And when it finally dies, you just get Shaddoll Fusion and they get punished. And then I have Double Winda. I made a video about this, like literally I win, duh. Like, and people, I think they kind of like stole my thing. They stole my little reference. And then we have Shikinaga. Shikinaga is still a beast. She puts in a lot of work. I think people sleep on this. They sleep on Grista and they sleep on Anoya Tillis. Wendigo just sucks. There's nothing good I can say about that card. Wendigo really does suck. But Anoya Tillis, Shikinaga, and Grista are all really good cards. But between those 3, I would always pick my good old Sheki because I think this card is way, way too OP and the right setup. And then I have Draco for my Super Poly target. Outside of being able to Super Poly your dolls, you want to dismantle Dragoon and the Verde Anaconda, or hit the Macabre and the Dragoon, or the Savage and the Dragoon. It's just totally up to you. And then we have Gravity Controller in Cross Sheep for utility cards, and also not only utility cards, but these cards allow you to get advantage, which is really, really good for you. Verte is also a utility card. With Verte, it's a utility card. It puts pressure. People might think you're on Dragoon, and it also outs Dragoon, and at the same time, this card can unclog your hand. So Verde is really, really good. And then I had room, so I decided to change the Boral Sword and Abyss Dweller into a Selena and an Access Code. Because now, when I resolve Cross Sheep in the right standing, what happens is I go boom, Cross Sheep effect, bring something back, link Cross Sheep in that into Selene, bring it back, go into Access Code. So Cross Sheep becomes a 1-card Access Code, which makes OTKing a lot more easy. And on top of that, with the amount of back row in the format, clearing boards before the OTK is important, whereas Boral Sword is like when the board is just monsters, but with so many traps and so much back row, in the format, it's like I think being able to clear the board is important. I mean, I love Sword. I think Sword a lot, and I think a lot of the time is way better than Code. But the Celine Code package is just way too clutch. It's just game in a pinch. It's a lot more convenient for you, whereas Boar Sword is a lot more commitment, and it still gets punished by back rows. So now we're gonna go into the side deck. So I'm siding 3 Dinkos. Dinko is crazy against control, and she's a light attribute if you need her to be. And we have 3 Lancia and 3 Droll, the blowouts. Even though I side 15, I still want 6 more. And then we have Dark Roller, in case the Droll or the 15 hand trap wasn't enough. Dark Roller's a budget alternative for droplets, and it's also better than droplets against Drytron specifically, because a lot of the times you're not going to OTK them, and also droplets require so much that you can't really fusion summon after you've droplets to hit 2. You're losing 3 cards, which means it should all fusion or bust, and they have to have an extra deck monster. So this is why I think Dark Roller in Shaddolls is better than droplets. You don't need droplets to discard a trap to hit the VFD and the Chuchi, because you're playing Shaddolls. You don't care about VFD or Chuchi. Like, you can activate a lot of effects under VFD, and you can pop the Chuchi with Dragon, which is cool. And then I have 3 Evenly, just to clear back rows. So Evenly and Dinko are blowouts for control decks. The Dark Rulers, Drolls, and the Lancias are blowouts for the combo decks. So yeah, you guys, this is my updated Shaddoll list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm a bit of, I guess you could say, a savant when it comes to this deck for how long I've been playing it and what I know. I know this deck like the back of my hand. I could play pretty much any Shaddoll variant, and I think that there's a specific way that you're supposed to play this deck, and if I don't see everybody playing it that way, I feel like they have to try the way that I play it. And the way that I play it is you're using the cards in the correct circumstances. You're not being greedy, but you're being smart. You're being patient, making the proper reads. You're not committing when it's not necessary. This deck absolutely can combo. This deck can make obnoxious boards, but a lot of the times, the longevity and advantage that you can get is always worth more than the payout that you would get from some scary looking inboard, because Schism with Resh and L is enough to beat everything. If they don't lose to Winda, they will lose to Ariel or Al Capone or Sheki Naga. And no, this is not the Winda deck. If a deck beats Winda, it doesn't mean that it beats Shaddolls. For any of those like ignorant mindsets that people have against Shaddolls. Shaddolls' only trick up his sleeve is not Winda. She's just icing on the cake. But that's going to be in the video. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Lord Jesus Christ. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, Lord Jesus, and please forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, Father, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, and the power forever. In the mighty name of Jesus I pray. Thank you, Father. Amen. All right, you guys. Peace.